Namaskar everyone, welcome to the very first episode of our podcast Science Heroes. This series on my YouTube is designed to talk science with the amazing heroes who are doing really great work in the different branches of STEAM. And this very podcast is dedicated to plant science, where we'll be talking with my friend Diane, who came to South Korea all the way from Guatemala to do her master's degree in plant pathology. So let's welcome her to this podcast. Welcome Diane, welcome to this channel. How are you?
I'm good. A little bit nervous, I must say. A little bit nervous, but good.
So can you tell our audience more about yourself?
Sure. Thank you. So my name is Diane. I am 28 years old and I'm from Guatemala. What else about myself? I really like dancing. That's one of my hobbies. I love to dance. It doesn't matter if there's music playing. I usually tend to imagine the music that I dance to. I love watching movies and spending time with my friends, and I really have loved nature all the way since I was like a little girl. So I think that's why I end up choosing science. So, yep.
Yeah. And you forget to mention one thing.
What?
You also have a podcast. So tell our audience about your podcast.
True. Thank you for the reminder. I'm so sorry, girls, that I forgot to mention the podcast. So yeah, actually, it's been 2 years already. With two friends from Guatemala, we started a podcast called Epistemas. It's a podcast in Spanish for all of you Spanish speakers out there, about STEM also. So yeah, check it out. I will share with you the links so people can find us.
Yeah. You guys can also get connected with her in Instagram and also follow her on YouTube. I'll keep the link in the description section, and somewhere here it will be also popping up so you guys can check it out.
Yeah.
And
also I'm a GKS scholar, as you. So.
Yeah, both of us are GKS Scholar 2020. Yeah, so if you have any queries related to GKS also, you can always write to her on Instagram. Yeah, so Diane, now let's jump into the main content of our podcast today. So let's go back to your high school, okay?
Ooh,
so
okay.
For example, in our country's case, if the students are really very bright and if they are really high score, parents always force them to go for science field. How is the case in Guatemala?
Okay, I see. I think it's usually you think about students with high scores opting for science, technology, or those types of careers. I don't know about anyone being forced to that type of thing. I think we have a pretty generalist type of education in high school, so you can do a little bit of everything. The high school that I went to, it's called science and letters, so there was a little bit of arts and literature and all of this base for all of us to choose which path we wanted to go. But there's also different types of careers that you can choose in high school. So more computer based or more science based, arts based, or other type of technical fields. So there's a little bit of everything, I think.
Wow, that's interesting. So what was your major during your undergraduate degree?
So in my undergraduate degree, I studied biochemistry and microbiology. Although I consider myself more to be a microbiologist than a biochemist. I think I always like microbiology more than
the biochemistry.
Yeah, the biochemistry part.
Can you tell us a little bit about your research in your undergraduate degree?
Sure. So I actually realized when I almost finished my undergrads that it always had to do with plants. Every school project that I had, every class that I took, my interest were more towards plants.
Inclined towards plants.
Yeah. So, but I didn't realize until the end of the career. My focus on my research was about how do you say this? Cacao, the broma cacao, the plant where chocolate comes from.
Plants.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was about genotyping and identifying different types of cacao trees. So that was what I did. I learned to do it because it was the first time for me working on that. So
sounds really interesting. So
I already forgot most of it.
So after your undergrad, did you work for some time? So how was your work experience?
Okay. So in order for me to study in the university that I did, I studied in a private university back home. So it usually tends to be really expensive to pay for our studies. So I had part a scholarship, part a credit from the university, and part of it was paid by my parents. So in order to pay the credit, you have like 1 year after you graduate to pay it without any interest. So I started working on my last year of university. Let's say we have, I don't know how it's for you, but undergrads for us, it's 5 years.
For us, it's just 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah.
For us, it's 5 years. There's some careers that are 4.5, but most of them are 5.
Okay.
So I started working on my 4th year of university, of undergrad. So I worked in plant tissue culture lab. Yeah, I worked in a plant tissue culture lab, and then I went to a plant pathology lab. And then after that, I graduated. And when I graduated, I started working in a biotechnological factory with biological control. Yeah, microorganisms. So because I was working and studying at the same time for a while, is it okay if I move? Because I was working and studying at the same time, it was really stressful. It was really tiring. It was really complicated. But good thing it was not forever. It was just like a couple of months, maybe like 5 months. I honestly don't remember how much it was.
It's fine.
Yeah. But it was fun. So I learned a lot about things that you don't usually learn in school, that is like, you know, like how to run a lab, what things do you need, and like how to deal with other people and clients and all of these things that I never learned. I remember when I first started the undergrads, I thought to myself that I didn't want anything to do with people, like people related. That's why I wanted lab work. I wanted to be with my petri dishes and like just doing lab work. And then after my working experience, I realized that I don't want just that. It was cool to also have some and have some people around and like, you know, have this people interactions there. So yeah, I think that was it. And because my last job was related to plant
Pathology?
plant pathology and plant how do you say biological control. I'm sorry, I'm used to say it in Spanish, so it's really hard to translate sometimes.
It's okay, it's fine.
Yeah, my last job was focused on biological control, so I got really interested in that. And I knew after I finished my undergrad that I wanted to go outside of Guatemala to study something else, a graduate degree. I didn't know where, I didn't know what, but I knew that I wanted to do that. But first my goal was to work and pay my credit. So after that I started, okay, let's see, where can I go, what can I do?
So in the end, how did you decide that you wanted to go Korea and you wanted to apply GKS? Why GKS? Why Korea?
It's interesting because during the undergrads I had this one friend that if she's watching this she will know who she is, that always talked about Asia. Always. She was like super into Japan. And
Shout
then
out to her.
Hi Andrea. How are you? She was always talking about Japan, and then eventually it changed to Korea. And she was like, I want to go there, I want to go there. And I always told her, I don't want to go there. Like, really, I don't see myself studying in Asia. Like, it's a different language, it's a different culture. And look at me now. So she like started that seed in me about South Korea. And you know, back then everything like K-pop related, K-dramas was like kind of like growing more and more every day. So you kept hearing about Korea even if you didn't want to. But I remember there was this one time when I was working that even when they played like K-pop in the radio, I just changed it because I was like,
not interested.
No, thank you.
Not my business.
Yeah, not for me. So yeah, that's how like I started thinking about Korea. But I was not really interested, and then I don't know why, honestly. I think like I saw something like K-pop related, but I really liked it. Like I was like, okay, this is not what I thought it was. So like I know that it sounds I know that it sounds so cliche to I started liking Korea because K-pop, right? But like no, like honestly, oh no, that's a lie. Yeah, I remember I bumped into a YouTube channel. I don't know if you know it. It's Korean Englishmen. No? So they were a couple friends doing videos about Korea and like sharing Korean culture. That's when I started liking more Korea. Yeah, I used to watch them with my brother, and the food looked great. The culture looked like super interesting, and also they had like a series of one teaching Korean to the other, and I was like, this sounds fun. Like, I know that I said like a couple years ago that this was not interesting, but maybe it is. So I started looking for ways to start learning Korean by myself.
Interesting.
And I started learning Hangul and just watching videos and like doing it on my own. And I got hooked, honestly. I think I tried learning other languages before, usually for Spanish speakers, maybe like Italian, Portuguese, French are the go-tos. And I did start, but I think they were too similar, so they never...
Like it drew your attention?
Yes, yeah, they never caught my attention. So when I started with Korean, it felt like a puzzle, you know? Now that we've studied Korean, I think we can agree, and it's kind of like a puzzle. So that was really interesting for me, and I wanted to keep on learning. So I was like, okay, Korea is like
the place.
Yeah,
I want to go.
moving up like in the list.
Okay.
And then I used to talk about Korea a lot in my work, I think, to a point that one time my immediate boss, my boss that I was working with, in the biocontrol factory, she knew that I liked Korea, and then she saw an opportunity to apply to a scholarship here.
Wow.
It was nothing related to plants. It was to work with fruit flies, which I also love. And she knew that I had experience working with fruit flies before, like Drosophila melanogaster. And she was like, you should apply. And it was like 1 week before the deadline. And I was running around and like gathering all the paperwork to finally apply. And I did. And it was with a Guatemalan that was here in Korea. She was the contact. So it made it even easier because it was someone from my country like doing this thing. And the only thing that I didn't have, and that's why I didn't have that scholarship, was the English exam. So yeah, I was like, I don't have a TOEFL, I don't have an how do you say that? IELTS, that. And so yeah, I didn't get that. But she told me, this person that I really admire her also, like we kept in touch, everything. She told me like, you should keep applying to different things. Like you for sure have the profile to apply for a scholarship. So that was a great start, because usually, I don't know how it's for you, but for us, I think, I don't want to generalize, but I've seen that people tend to not apply because they're afraid, or they think that they don't have what it takes to get a scholarship. So they don't even try. And that's the thing, like once you try one time and you get a no, you say like, okay, this is not as scary as I thought it was going to be, and I actually can do it, especially when you get feedback of like why you didn't get it.
Yeah, so there is always like, we can just try. Like we don't lose anything by just trying, so why not give it a try? So,
Exactly. So after that, and with this friend that I told you earlier, Andrea, yeah. We were like, let's apply to Korea government scholarship together. So we started all the things. Back then it was when Corona started. So it was even more complicated to get even like a photocopy of a document. Everything was closed. So we started in this process together. And luckily we made it to like
the second round.
Yeah, like together. But in the final? At some point, she didn't get the scholarship. Sad for her, but she got a different one. So like shout out
to her.
Congratulations. So yeah, she ended up going to Europe, and I ended up coming here about at the same time. So yeah, I think that's it.
It seems like you fell in love with Korea in the process, of like watching YouTube videos and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, how did you end up selecting that particular lab?
Oh, okay. So applying to the scholarship is a really
tricky and
Yeah, tricky, complicated, long, and like, you know, if you watch DVS videos, like you know all of it, right? So looking for what universities to apply for, because we don't have a university track, we have only embassy track in Guatemala for the GKS scholarship. I think it's still the same. Actually, I haven't checked, but I think it's still the same. So I had to choose 3 universities, and my main focus, there were several things that were important for me. There were several things. First, if they answer back to me.
I don't know. Main point, because if they are not responsive, then how can we expect them to like hear us or like in the letter? So if they are irresponsive, like just quit it. Don't apply to that university. For sure. Go for another.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things, because maybe in paper it looks super nice, super cool, but then you don't get an email back and it's like, okay, no, like this
that's not my place.
Yeah, red flag. There. So that was one of the things. Another one was I was looking for a program. I didn't care about the ranking of the universities, you know, like usually people think, Seoul University, Seoul National University, Korea University, and like Yonsei University, the top 3, the Sky. I really didn't mind. If it was one of them that had the program that I like, cool. But if it was not, there was no problem really. So I focused on each and every program related to plant sciences, and I wanted, I didn't know that. And related to plant sciences, and I wanted something both plant pathology and biological control. I wanted a mix of both. I didn't want more of one thing or more of the other. I wanted both in equal parts. So after looking through the programs, I selected 3, and KNAU was my first choice. So I based on the program. And as for the lab, I actually didn't choose the lab.
Really? In our case, we choose and we came.
Yeah, I didn't.
I think you guys are lucky.
I got an email from my professor. He was an assistant professor back then, 3 years ago. So he wrote to me and he was like, I will gladly take you on my lab. So he is working, the lab works in fruit
flies?
No.
Drosophila? No.
Fruit tree.
Fruit tree?
Fruit trees, like
horticultural.
Plant, but like plant pathology focused on the fruit trees. Yes. So he told me, like, if you want, we can work in that field together once you finish the Korean year. So we kept in touch. And also, can I say like a fun fact about my GKS application?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just for you to don't do that.
Okay.
I know, like, you know what happened to me? My email address was wrong in my application.
Oh my god. That's a blunder, Diane. How could you do that?
My email address was wrong. I have no idea how it happened, because you know, like, you check things like 10,000 times.
Yeah.
And I guess like I got to a point where even if I read everything, I didn't even pay attention because everything was just so automatic. And like my email address has a number in the end. And I just put it without the number. So how did everyone contact me after that was through Guatemalan's embassy. So like they knew that I was applying through the embassy, and then one day I get an email from the embassy telling me, you have your email address wrong. These people are trying to contact you and they have no answer. And I was like, oh my god, that's not possible. So yeah, that happened to me. So check your email address like more than 5 times.
But I think your embassy is really so nice, you know. Like if it were maybe some cases, maybe people miss the chance just because like you were contactless. So you must be thankful to your embassy.
Yeah, I'm really, really thankful for them. And for my professor that kept trying to get in touch with me. So that's cool.
It was so kind of them, you know.
I remember when I came here and he was like, your email address was wrong. And I'm like, yes, I know, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't know. It was not on purpose.
Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about your research. What was the research topic in your master's degree? Maybe many of them may be so interested about it.
I love this. I told you, right? I wanted plant pathology and biological control. I didn't do any of that. Kind of related to plant pathology more than any other thing. So my research was about ice nucleation activity. I think that before coming here and before starting my research, I had no idea it existed. So yeah, I worked with the ice nucleation activity of a fungal genus known as Fusarium that is usually
Causing wilt.
yeah, causing wilt in plants, but also it's airborne, so like it's everywhere around us. It's in the soil, it's in the air, it's in the water, it's everywhere literally. So when I used to work back home, I used to find it in like environmental controls, you know, like floating around and stuff. And for us, we didn't want it. So to be working with it here, it was really here it was the only thing that I worked with. So what happens is like, I don't know, when people ask you at what temperature does water freeze, what temperature do you think?
It freezes at 0.
0, right?
Yeah.
It was my train of thought too. Like that's what I thought, and it ends up being that if you have water in the most pure state possible, it freezes at around minus 38 degrees Celsius. It's super low. So what happens is that in the environment around us, we have a lot of different ice nucleating particles. So things that are foreign that start the freezing of water at temperatures higher than minus 38. So in the case of biological particles, like let's say a fungus, it can happen around like minus 15 degrees Celsius, minus 12, something like that. So the reason why we think water freezes at 0, it's because there's always like something making it freeze, but it's not pure, ultra pure water. So that's what I worked in. I worked with this fungus that was capable of making water freeze at minus 8 degrees Celsius.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, and the thing in how was this related to plant pathologies was a fungus isolated from trees, from apple trees that were declined. So that was like the link between the things. Yeah.
Sounds so great. I would like to learn more about it. Please share me your paper later, okay?
For sure. I will share it with you. And if there's any one of you guys interested, there's a couple of papers already published about it. So for sure, I will send it to you.
Please share it to me in Kakao, okay?
Yeah.
I want to read about it.
Yes.
Because I have a little bit more inclined towards pathology, and maybe in my PhD
Yeah.
I'll be doing in that field. I don't know.
That would be so
I just
cool.
want to try, you know. So Diane, can you little bit simplify your research in little bit simpler form so that like a layman watching it can also little bit understand it?
Yeah, I'll try. I actually really like science communications, so I will try my best. If not, please give me feedback.
That is the main purpose of this podcast as well. So yeah, just please simplify.
Trying to make things
Science
simple.
simpler.
Yeah. So as I told you before, water freezing, right? In
That
these
fungus
years,
is,
a
minus
fungus
8.
that is causing water to freeze at higher temperatures. So imagine nowadays with climate change being as urgent, like to take action against climate change being so urgent, and with temperatures going warmer every year, like this is a thing that is really important. Now, the thing is, like, you would think apple trees, because of where they grow, they all go through this dormant period.
It's
So
okay.
all trees go to this dormancy period. That is usually, you think dormancy winter, right? But so when they're in this dormancy period, it depends on, I will talk about apple because it's what I work with.
Feel free.
Yeah. So there's some trees that can even stand up to minus 35 degrees Celsius in winter. The problem is when they go out of dormancy. So like, let's say the end of winter, the beginning of spring. So when temperatures are starting to get warmer, but we know, right, that even in spring, at the beginning of spring, we have like colder days. So imagine a tree that is already out of dormancy that goes through this like cold late frost, like in spring, so temperatures drop, so they can get injured by the cold and get stressed by cold. So if, let's say, for example, in a normal scenario without ice nucleation active microorganisms, cold injury can happen at around minus 15. This is an example, don't take my word for it. But let's say it's minus 15 degrees Celsius. Only if the temperature drops to minus 15, they will be cold injury. But if you have ice nucleation active microorganisms around, like for example Fusarium, or there's another bacteria called Pseudomonas syringe that also causes ice to form in higher temperatures. Even if the temperature drops to -8, that is like 7 degrees of difference, it will cause cold injury and it will cause stress. So that's where it's really important, because if there's ice nucleation active microorganisms around, diseases, plant diseases, fungal diseases can happen easier because the trees will be stressed, they will be susceptible to other infections. So what we were trying to do, what I was trying to do with my research was first see what all of this Fusarium that we isolated from declined trees, were they ice nucleation active? Which ones were ice nucleation active? Like, how does this ice nucleation activity work? But of course, this topic specifically, ice nucleation activity, is really really interesting. If you are interested, please go ahead. But there's so much information that we don't have. We don't know a lot of things. I've read so many papers and like books and everything, and there's so many things that we still don't know about it, especially like in fungus. So there's bacteria, fungus, there's like sand and all of these particles that have that characteristic. So it's a really interesting topic that can also be applied to plant pathology and plant sciences.
Wow. Now this is really very informative, and I hope like people, like even the layman, could understand it. So yeah, thank you for elaboration. So do you have any suggestions to people who would like to apply to GKS in future, and also to those people who would like to continue plant pathology as their future career? Give them some tips and your valuable insights.
So I will start with people that want to pursue plant sciences. Honestly, when I did my undergrad, I did not have a lot of experience in plant sciences. The only like experience in terms of, I didn't have classes related to plant sciences, maybe like a couple out of the whole curriculum. But it was like the projects, the tiny projects, and like my work experience, and like you think you learn a lot in a classroom, but you learn a lot more in
outside
the field.
Outside
of the classroom with the working experience. So I think like if you already know that you have an interest in plant sciences, or even if you don't, even if you are curious about plant sciences, I would tell you like go experience it a little bit more. Find what about plant sciences is it that you like. In my case, I told you, right, plant pathology and biological control. And I ended up working with ice nucleation activity. But what I realized from all of this, like from my journey, is that I really like how plants and microorganisms interact with each other, even if it's bad, if it's good, like I like that thing. So it took me a long time to realize that. So it's okay if you don't know right away what part of it is it that you like, but I encourage you to try to have that experience, to look for internships, to look for like other courses outside of university.
Possible. Try as much as possible.
And talk with other people, like what you're doing now, like talk with other people that are on those fields and reach out to them. And I think that applies not just to plant sciences, but to any field that you're interested.
And also our GKS. Tips.
Tips. Okay, to apply to GKS,
especially the people from your country.
Okay, cool. I think people in my country, actually, it's really complicated in terms because you have a lot of translations and like legalizations and a lot of things, and we, at least back home, is not so easy to know where to do everything. So if you have a GKS, if you know someone that applied to GKS scholarship before you in Guatemala, like my social media, for example, my email are open if you need help.
Also
to
Instagram.
Instagram, like, or my email, LinkedIn, or those things. I've had people reach out to me and ask me like, where do you do this? How did you do that? And I think general advice is you have to be sure in some sense, like it's up to one point of you wanting to be here, to come into Korea and to pursuing the degree that you want to pursue. Back then I was really sure that I wanted to come to Korea. I was really sure about why I wanted to keep studying plant sciences. And so that helps you a lot when you're writing your motivation letter, your
SOP and
yeah,
everything.
I forgot the names, but
It's okay. It's
yes.
okay.
So yes, when you're writing all your essays, it's really important for you to know why you want to come. And believe me, just liking K-pop and K-dramas is not a
won't help,
thing.
yeah.
It won't help.
Yeah.
So for me, it felt really repetitive that I kept saying, I want to study plant sciences because this and that, and like my country needs it, right? And I want to go back to my country and like help in this field. So I really knew what I wanted, even though I didn't do it to 100%. I knew what I wanted, and that helped me a lot in my application. And also be yourself.
Yeah.
Be yourself. Don't try to be like generic answers or something like that. Genuinely be yourself, and I think that will get you a long way.
Your unique story is going to help you be selected among those pool of applications, because the competition these days is really fierce, I think, because the information is distributed so globally.
Everywhere.
And like
Yeah.
everyone is like, even the GKS is making its rule little bit more strict.
Yes.
Like the past GKS cannot again apply to GKS again, and also the language requirements are increasing. So prepare your application in advance. And also the undergrad application is going to be opening soon in the September. So get ready, guys,
And the best of luck.
and we wish you all the best from our side.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Diane, for joining this
problem.
podcast and sharing your experiences and your insights. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of podcast. In the future, we'll be bringing more episodes in this series. Till then, stay safe, stay productive. Thank you. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.